October, which means, of course, the stores are already loading up with all the Christmas season goodies and everything. I'm already in full Ebenezer Scrooge mode. It's not a holiday. It's not a celebration. It's just another marketing gimmick. And I experienced a true European Christmas many years ago, and that spoiled me for the American version, and ever since. And I can't get into Christmas. I can't get into the trees. I can't get into all of that stuff, especially while we're bombing the people you see in those nativity sets for their oil. And I cannot get enthusiastic about it right now. It's just another, let's pretend that we're still, a culture and a society here by buying stuff at the store on credit here. All right, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Mike is in the control room today. Crystal's having the day off. And he's ready to answer your calls when you call on in. And a reminder, RBN is still in their fundraiser. They're needing to raise money for new equipment to replace the old equipment, which is failing as soon as the warranties are coming out. So please go over to republicbroadcasting.org. They have a PayPal button there. They also have an online store where you can buy some pretty nifty items. We're going to be talking about shortwave radio receivers a little later in the week, things you should look for, because in the event something should happen to the blogosphere, those shortwaves are going to become very important. And a reminder that the RBN programming will be available on shortwave imminently. I don't have the official start date yet, but we're going to be broadcasting on shortwave. So if the internet should be interfered with in the name of national security, you'll still be able to get our programming out from those shortwave radios. And I know shortwaves sort of faded from fashion when the internet came along, but it's really a good thing to have, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later in the week. You can also call Republic Broadcasting at 800-724-2719 and arrange for your support that way. And we really do need your help. We don't have big corporate sponsors. We don't have anonymous government funding agencies paying our bills here because they don't like it when we tell the truth on them. And all the big money is going to the liars right now. And people who are trying to get the truth out, we need your help. We need the little money to help us fight the big money, and that is you. Now, I want to talk at the start of this show about Iran and red lines, because with Netanyahu's utter failure at the United Nations to convince the world that Iran is an imminent nuclear threat, I mean, they've only been saying it for 33 years, Iran will have the bomb in 6 months. 30 years it's been going on, this same thing, and it hasn't happened yet. And so the credibility of the Iranian nuclear threat is very much on the wane. Netanyahu's credibility has been trashed with it. We're already seeing more and more indications of how even AIPAC's influence in our political structure has been damaged by this humiliating debacle at the United Nations. But the war with Iran is still desired by a very great number of parties. And you need to remember that issues of Israel and keeping them happy aside, the main reason for the United States government to want to invade Iran is to complete their plan for what I call the dollarification of the OPEC oil-producing nations. And by that, I mean to basically invade or regime change or somehow convince all of the Arab oil-producing nations, actually all the oil-producing nations, including Venezuela, to go back to only accepting dollars for their oil in order to prop up the dollar internationally. That's the real top agenda here. They don't want you to know about that. They're trying to sell you this war with, evil Iranian terrorists and evil Iranian nuclear bombs and evil Iranian whatever it is they're going to sell you next week on this situation. When we come back from the commercial break, I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail, because all of a sudden the U.S. government has a real problem on how they're going to sell you this next war. We'll be right back. Iran, and we all know the idea that Iran is some kind of a threat to the United States. It's complete nonsense. They're not in the habit of starting wars. They haven't started a war in over 200 years. They are not belligerent. They are not a threat, period, end of discussion. Now, placating Israel aside, there are two motives for the U.S. to want to invade Iran. The first one is what might politely be termed a point of honor. The CIA overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran back in 1953 and imposed the